Mr. Brittain,
Here.
Mr. Chesney,
Here.
Mr. Cox,
Here.
Mr. Fishman,
Here.
Mr. Ramsey,
Here.
and Mr. Shipley.
Mississippi's ship is the only one that's absent.
Right.
I'll give you just a minute to look over the minutes of the summary of the minutes of the Joint Economic Community Board, our board that met on March the 7th. I think each one has it at their place.
Move to approve. Second.
Mr. Cox moved that the summary of the minutes be approved. Mr. Brittain, second. All those in favor, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. And the next item on the agenda is the reports. Mr. Cox, City of Morristown.
It's budget season, so I've got a shorter report than normal, but I did want to mention that some people around town are talking about the election, but the hot news is East High had their prom on Main Street. Now, if you look at social media, that's the big thing going on. So it evidently did come off well. We didn't have reports of any problems, although I was very concerned. We are in the midst, well, just about done with budget preparation. We will present the proposed budget to council on Friday the 13th, which is not a good sign, but we're going to go ahead and do that. That'll be Friday the 13th down at the Public Works Training Room at 9 o'clock. We'll start there and kick off the budget season for the city. It will be an interesting budget year because of the federal funds flowing through and the wrinkles that provides, the opportunities that we'll see. Also, if you drive down Morris lately, you'll notice that the Jolly Park construction's moving along very well. We have tentatively got the park opening set for June the 4th. We should be seeing invitations going out before too very long, but if you can, that'll be a pretty active weekend. I believe, Marshall, isn't that the weekend of the disc golf championship? So there'll be a lot of things going on that weekend already. Another park news thing to report is Fulton Hill Park. We're working on trying to finish up a rustic trail in Fulton Hill through the wooded area. This will bring our overall trail and sidewalk paths within that park to about 2 miles for the overall trail system. Our big problem is getting weather to cooperate long enough for us to get the last pieces in, but it will be a trail with wood chips. It's not a paved trail. It is more rustic in nature. Also, I believe at their meeting last week, Morristown Utilities adopted a policy dealing with development of residential areas and the provision of transformers. We're yet to see what the details of that policy is, but they are struggling with getting materials in at all, and if it is, the price of those materials to support residential development, commercial development as well. So we'll be watching to work with Morristown Utilities here through the coming month to make sure that we do our best to be prepared. Evidently, you cannot buy transformers in a reasonable time at a reasonable price anywhere in the nation.
Is transformers question? Is transformers the only real shortage they've got?
That's the big one that's hurting them. There's some other ones we've got. Some silly things that we're getting. For example, I've got a ADA bathroom rehab project in some of the parks. We can't get thresholds for the doors. We can put up doors, except we can't get thresholds to make them access ADA accessible. So transformers is a big one, but it's also expensive, and that's what Morristown Utilities is really concerned about. Thinking about Morristown Utilities, one of the big projects we'll have from the federal funding is going to be a 1 million gallon water tank. that'll be out at exit 12. That will provide fire flow to the old Inca plant, and will also facilitate development around exit 12. This is money that's flowing to the state that will flow back to localities for utility projects. Unfortunately, because it is the way the state has got it set up, we can't even make application until June. So we're working on trying to get ready to go, but we feel like this project will get approved, will get done. We're making the efforts ready now to make sure that we get the fire protection we need to continue to develop out at exit 12. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the new road from the car wash at the Crockett Shopping Center down to Thompson Creek Road. If you've been by there lately, it is got binder coat down. It's getting very close. We're working on the transition from the new road to the existing Thompson Creek Road. The design will be that it'll be a full flow through from the shopping center to Morris Boulevard. There will be a stop sign on the existing Thompson Creek, and we're working on the design of the curve that's going there at the transition. We're trying to negotiate with the property owners, also the gas companies in the area, trying to find some easements. So it's a very hectic time right now to be dealing with easements and right-of-way, but that will be a major change. But those folks that will be driving on Thompson Creek from Fitch-Hatchery back toward Morris will find a change in conditions in just several weeks. So we'll be prepared, and we'll make a big publicity campaign about the change in flow, but it will be a significant change, but it is going to make it a lot easier to get to the east end from that area. So we think it's going to help a lot tying the campus, the retail, the housing, and our park all together. I think it makes for a nice improvement to the east end. But that's what I brought for today.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone have any questions, Tony? Got report of the county, Mr. Brittain.
The primary elections are tomorrow. Polls open 8 to 8. About 4,300 voted during the early voting period. The winners move on to the general election in August. We're entering month 5 of the Justice Center project. Work continues on the foundation system. County Commission is going to tour the site on Thursday. County issued bonds for the new Justice Center and the new elementary school 2 weeks ago. Sold the bonds at a premium. Will net $97.4 million by issuing $91 million in bonds. So the premium is helping us, and with the true interest rate of 3.61%. Budget committee starts meeting on May the 17th. The commission has hired LaBelle Commercial Realty to start a search for a new health department site. The school board hired retiring Air Force General Arnie Bunch as the new director of schools. And the comptroller's office last week acknowledged Hamblen County or recognized Hamblen County for a clean audit for fiscal year 2021. So that's about it.
Any questions, Bill? Anyone? Marshall?
All right, so, going on lately, we have announced, ODIX expansion, now $150 million, 100 jobs. So it's a 60,000 square feet expansion. So that's, for that size building, that's, y'all know what a building costs to build. That's a lot of equipment and a lot of high-tech equipment for the community. So that's good. Color Tech announced a $5 million 25 job expansion. And this is part of what they've had ongoing. This is for some outside storage tanks and some piping and some of that. Let's see, Project Egg is still ongoing. I think within a month we'll have an announcement there as well. So I won't go into great detail there yet, but you'll learn more soon. Greenworks has made an offer on about 85 acres of property for new R&D facility, as well as basically basically a testing ground, I guess that's what we'll call it. They're gonna show off how their mowers mow and their trimmers trim and their saws cut. So, that's good to see that growth in the community. We can see the push that direction. IATRIC, I actually just got an email from them this morning. One of the people I mentioned in our last meeting that we've been touring around for the community, he has moved here with his wife. What's funny is they had already put an offer in on a lake property in Arizona. And they came here and they said, oh my gosh, my money buys so much more here. And then they started talking about taxes. And they said, oh my gosh, you don't even pay taxes here. And I said, yeah, we do. We have property taxes. And they said, well, we've been looking everywhere, and you have the cheapest property taxes we've seen. And I said, well, I'm sure there's places cheaper, but not, you know, not for the amenities you're gonna get here. And this is an older couple, they have grandkids. So they're buying what I would think is much more house than they need for them. But they said, you know, with the number of parks and the amenities you have, our grandkids are gonna be here all the time. And actually, he was emailing to say his kids came down when they visited from Ohio, both sons with families. And he said, they've said, based on all the industrial jobs here, we're moving to the area too. They're picking up in Ohio and moving to Morristown because of what's here and the cost of living here. So that's kind of a testament to our city and county government, you know, and what we do with taxes. And you look at the surrounding counties, you look at a Cobb County that's $1 more in taxes, or a Granger County that's 30 cents more in taxes. People here don't realize how good they have it. It is unbelievable how cheap we are to be here, and the industries recognize that. Our locals don't recognize that, unfortunately, but the people around the area recognize that. I was at a conference this past week, and one of our counties, about 2 hours away, were talking about taxes. And I said, what is yours? They were 40 cents more than us, and they're about to have to do a jail project. And he said, that'll make us $1.40 more than you. How do we compete recruiting the industry if we're $1.40 more? So that's the challenge other communities are gonna run into. So, you know, that's.
You didn't tell them how, did you?
No, they don't get all the secrets. But it was neat to kind of hear some of those compliments. Another thing coming up, you know, 1st of June, we mentioned disc golf. So 600 players coming to town, the economic value of that. That same community you just mentioned, we just built our first disc golf course. And I said, you're on a good start. And I said, look at the cost of a 25,000 disc golf course and the return in a tournament weekend of $250,000. And I said, think if you have those tourism community events every other weekend, how quickly that adds to your tax base. It's not all beating everybody that lives there up, it's taking other people's money that visit there and letting them leave. And Sevier County's obviously had that figured out for years. So it's talking to them about that broad approach that, you know, like Jack says, with the economic wheel, you don't drive a wheel on one spoke. You gotta have all your spokes strong. And for some reason, a lot of communities don't get that, and it's pretty simple. But I think we've done that well here, and our government arm is a very strong part of that, so that's very helpful. The Chamber's working on the Women in Business program, which has been very successful. I think we had 2 meetings now?
The second one will be this week.
Second one's this week. I think we've had, how many people sign up? Had 60 attendees the first time,
About
but
85.
85 people sign up. So that's nice. And we joke in our community about women in business, but you look on the wall here, and we've been doing women in business here with Maudie and, you know, ladies around the wall for years and years. And if you look up the chamber board right now, it's probably 50% male-female. So while other communities are still getting a grasp on diversity and gender roles, you know, we've been doing it here for years because it's just not a big deal to us. It's how business is done. So we thought about the Women in Business program and highlighting to some of the younger ladies involved that here's how you do get involved in the community and here's how you become a leader. So that was some of the ideas there. I mentioned in the last meeting, we had a small German visit a few weeks back, and I think Mayor Chesney got to meet those guys, went to lunch. Word is they'll be back in July, hopefully to make an announcement. So not a big company, but it could grow. You know, what do you think, Gary? Any opinions?
They seem to be genuinely interested. It wasn't just token smiles and nods. They asked what I took to be serious questions, and I felt like the group we had made a favorable impression, and their description of what they do, I thought of course I think we're a good fit for everybody, but I thought we were a particularly good fit for this company, so I'm glad to hear that response.
If you look at the logistical challenges going on around the world, if the customer base is here, you have to deliver product and make product out of here. So that's what we're seeing a lot of these projects look at now. Tony talked about the water tank at Inca, and I'll talk about some of the value of that. So that 1.2 million square foot building has now been purchased by RNS Logistics. About 200,000 of that is taken by Ball Canning. So if you go in, you see cans of all sorts, from whipped cream, pressurized cans, to food grade cans. It's cans of all kinds. The back half is part of where 5R processors were. The owners there spent about $2 million cleaning that space up. And when we walked in, we showed the German company. And it was full of Denso and automotive parts from everybody you can imagine for just-in-time delivery for Toyota and Nissan and Volkswagen and BMW. It's pretty impressive what's going on out there. The challenge is, though, we can only store so much because of fire protection. So generally anything metal's okay, but we can't do a lot of manufacturing out there. Warehousing's okay, but manufacturing's not. Our goal is to get that whole site back to a manufacturing level. So we've been working with TDEC on that, and a new assistant commissioner with them has been amazing. He was actually an attorney in environmental representing the company side. So to see somebody in TDEC that's on the side of business and industry is a departure. So that's very nice, and he's been in some prospect meetings and is very supportive of utilizing that site. So anything we can do to get that property back on the tax rolls and, you know, employing people is valuable for us. So I think, you know, we'll see progress out there. This week I'll also be in Nashville for e-trauma. So they're working on a site development grant to work towards site certification, and we're gonna work on a grant for ALTA survey, resistivity testing, phase 1 environmental, archaeological reviews, wetlands reviews, and threatened and endangered species reviews. So those are some of the things that when prospects come, they ask for. That's usually very early what they ask for. That's something a lot of people in the communities take for granted. They think, oh, that stuff's no big deal. Jody and I have got hundreds of pages of studies for every site we have that we provide to these people, and they want to make sure that you've done your due diligence, because what they don't want in business is surprises, because surprises cost money and slow you down. So we try to take the surprises out. The e-trauma site for us, it's in Jefferson County, but the value to the region is huge. That's good for our labor. It takes pressure off some of the sites in our park for projects that may not fit us, it may fit there. So I'll work with them to help support that grant and whatever we can do to help. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
On the former Inca site, you mentioned that, and Tony's mentioned, one of the holdups out there, of course, we've got water, but we don't have enough water, like for fire protection or production right now. When are you gonna let that water tank in?
We've got to be done in 2 years. The grant application will go in June. It'll probably take 6 to 9 months just to get it designed and get it approved by the state before we can go forward.
For the water tank?
So probably what, spring of 23, you'll be able to bid it?
Yeah.
What?
Spring of 23 is when we'll probably go to bid, would be a rough guess.
And in your view, of course, you and I took the tour of the, how it was a former nylon plant out there. What's the name of it, got anybody in that building?
That's the one I'm talking about. So, yes, so Furrow's now sold that to RNS Logistics. We went through with David Hall in the golf cart. They've sold it to another company who's put companies in it. So we've got a warehousing company in there that's got product from, I don't know, hundreds, I don't know how many, it was a lot of them. It was full, that back part. And the front part's full, so they've probably still got 600,000 square feet of that available. 600,000 square foot roughly available out there. nice building. I mean, it didn't need any cleanup, but like you said, other than the fire protection, it's good. They've got potable water, plenty of water, but it's just not enough to pressurize, because that building's pretty big, not enough to pressurize all those lines.
Yeah.
And the good thing is with a lot of, like cans, if you're storing cans, your insurances don't require you to fire protect that. You know, only certain products have to have that fire protection. So that's how you can do certain products out there, you can't do others.
Who owns that building?
R&S Logistics out of Knoxville. I think they have 17 or 18 facilities like this around, say, Crossville to Tri-Cities.
Has anything been done back to the, what I call the Jolly Building over on the back?
I think some people have looked at it, but I don't think anything yet.
That was a polyester.
You know, it's got the building and about 45 acres with it. It's pretty good up front.
Is what shape is that building in? It's not in good shape, so.
No, he had a company in it that was doing some kind of recycling, and I think they started recycling part of the
Who
building.
owns
I
that?
think Randall has it now.
Jolly.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Marshall, one of the things I was looking at getting ready for the budget is the unemployment rate's very, very low. But my impression is there's still a ton of jobs that could be filled. Is that something you found from the folks you talked to on your trip?
Yep. And what the discussion's going, you know, we talk about labor and what's going on, and we had a person there at that conference talking about labor. And the first thing they said, remember, since you were a kid, you've always heard there'll be all these jobs available, and you got all these boomers gonna retire, and people your age is gonna have all these jobs. And they said with COVID, those people retired earlier. So it's not a people problem, it's a population problem. It's not there's all these people out there without work, it's that we didn't generate enough population. And you look at birth rates from the 80s to now, you're way lower than you used to be in the 40s and 50s. So their claim is that it's generally a sheer number of population that we lack. So they're talking about immigration programs. How do we solve the problem with importing people? Because you know they think it's a generational thing, and it's more volumes of people needed than just people unwilling to work. Because we're kind of, like you said, with unemployment rate, we're kind of pre-pandemic right now when things were at 2-3%. So they're thinking it's other issues. It was funny, I was in the Charlotte airport, and I was gonna get Panda Express for lunch. And on the wall was a sticker, and it said, fast food workers unionized, we deserve more than $15 an hour. And I get up there, we hadn't had time to cook white rice. We ain't got any vegetables. We'll fry some of that later if you can come back in about 30 minutes. And I got to thinking, you know, this is what's left of labor right now. You know, we're kind of scraping the bottom. How do we get more people ready? And I think our high schools and our community colleges and TCATs are doing a good job of that, but we need more than that. So I think what you'll see based on governmental, environmental regulations, if we shut certain industries down, I think you'll see certain cities almost become ghost towns, and you'll see migration to communities like ours. We're seeing that with some of our own industries. We're touring the people around our community that are leaving communities that are basically becoming ghost towns because of what type of industry they used to have. So I think we'll see some big, and that's what this conference was kind of about. I think you'll see big population shifts around the country, either based on politics or dying industry.
So, to combat, part of the, see if I'm correct here, part of the effort to combat the low number of potential workers is business and industry are going to automation, more and more
100%.
automation.
Yep. Yep.
You still have to have the industrial maintenance guys to repair the machines, but they're going.
Robots don't fail drug tests, and they don't show up late to work. They have to be worked on occasionally, which is good. Those are high-paying jobs to work on. But it's a whole lot cheaper long-term. You don't spend money retraining robots. You don't give them points when they show up late. There's a lot of value in that, so, and that'll have to shift our focus a little. We'll start hearing more projects with a much higher, like an Otis, $150 million investment and only 100 jobs. And out of that, they said, we may only be able to fill 60 of those jobs. And they'll be able to put out the product with 60 jobs and 150 million investment. And typically, 150 million investment, that's an eighth of the size of a Volkswagen plant when they started in Chattanooga. And you look at 5,000 jobs down there, Otis should have had 400 jobs by comparison for that investment. But you can see with automation, that's the way it has to go. So we talked a lot at that conference about artificial intelligence and, your goggles you're using now, and how it used to be kids playing games with the Oculus goggles. And now they've made offices for people that the manufacturing floor runs itself. And instead of these people hitting their buttons, they're sitting at a desk on their Oculus watching what's going on, hitting buttons on their computer at their desk to make it easier and to make people want to work in manufacturing. So I think we're going to see a lot more changes. It's going to be interesting. But I think labor, I'd say it'll cure itself, but industries are going to adapt. They did it through COVID. Our restaurants did it through COVID. I think you'll see business and industry adapt to less people. They're not going to be happy about it, but I think they'll figure it out. It'll be an upfront cost, but long term, there'll be a lot of value to that.
And prospects for the neighborhood.
Kind of. Nothing,
No.
they're still asking a lot.
No question.
We had a visit, was it week before last, Jody? Week before last with one. It's kind of pretty perspective. I'd say, if I was ranking it, it's maybe a 5% chance on that one.
What is our problem, the cost of building the house?
Cost is high. They bought it at auction, or not at auction, it turned into an auction. They bought it for, say, $5 million, and they originally were asking $10 million for it after they stripped the good equipment out of it. So yeah, it's a cost thing. Now to rebuild it right now would be $20 million, but that building's pretty old, needs a roof, needs a lot of work. So you pay $10 million, then you pay another $8 or $10 million fixing it up, and then you get to the question, should I build a new building? Then you get the building you want.
Lyric sold it, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, an investment group has it now.
And they're asking,
I think they dropped it to 8.5 million.
any other questions? Any other business?
I want to mention, over the weekend, it's very satisfying to read a couple of announcements. One was in, I think, Oneida, and the other community more towards Chattanooga. Big announcements, budget passed in Nashville. Our community's getting 11 million, 13 million, whatever, to expand their TCAT centers. When the announcement about what a great improvement this was gonna be and the jobs and all, and it was just like rereading where we were 3 years ago, and others are catching up and announcing like they've just discovered the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's kind of satisfying that the teamwork that was used here to get us from the bottom of the priority list 6 or 7 years ago to what we have now. I just thought that was, I got a lot of satisfaction reading those news articles in those communities.
Also, am I correct in that budget, that basically the state, because it won't be open this summer, but, in that budget, there's something like $580,000 to rebuild the swimming pool in Panther Creek.
There hadn't been a decision made yet. The money's there, but the decision hadn't been made yet.
Say that again. The
All right.
money's there?
The money's in the budget, but there hadn't been a decision by TDEC to do it yet.
Who made makes the decision, Parks Department?
They're doing a strategic plan for the whole park system. And then, and part of that is a plan for Panther Creek as well.
I was trying to remember, is a deputy director for TDEC over the parks, I can't remember his name.
Bryson,
There's still a good bit of discussion
yeah.
about going on about that.
Is there anything that we can do, need to do, about that? Can we do anything?
Just participation in the discussion.
In other words, I know the council and both the court have worked hard to make sure that they did do that at Panther Creek Park. And now that they put the money in the budget to do it,
I think the way to actually phrase it is there's discussions underway and some proposals have come from here and the state's responded and the response is probably not as attractive as what we had hoped for, and so some back and forth going on. Would that be accurate, Bill? That's really where we are now, and probably can't say a great deal more about it at the moment.
needs more money. You didn't say.
That would be helpful, yeah.
But I guess even best case scenario, they wouldn't have it finished until 24.
No, I understand that, but the way the mayors are indicating, what you're saying is basically the commissioner of parks, the state, his staff, have got the money to fix it and reopen it, but they're also the ones that made the decision, the other 8 or 9 parks, including ours, that they were going to get out of the swimming pool business. That's the reason I'm asking a question. If they made the decision to get out of the business, now all of a sudden, the legislature, thanks our legislators, I suppose, they've got $500,000 or better to fix Panther Creek Park. And apparently, none of the other swimming pools that they were going to close are in that. Nobody's told me they got any money. Now, although they've got the money, if they don't think that the swimming pools are a vital part of our park, they still may not do anything. And it may not be 24, is that correct? Am I saying that right?
After we had the meeting here with them, their commitment was to reconsider closing the pool, and that they had a strategic plan. They're working on a strategic plan for the whole park system statewide, and Panther Creek was one component of that study. And so that was their commitment after those meetings. Now, the funding that's in the budget is the next step. Then there still that study still needs to happen, still needs to be completed. And then we'll have the discussions with them then.
Didn't he say their target for getting a study done was this fall?
This fall.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Not Chair, I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So maybe
So ordered.